Mover Nation, the trial of Michelle Troconis is about ready to enter its fourth week, and I am just now catching up to it. And I got to tell you, after looking and examining this case over the last 24 hours, I have, of course, a lot of thoughts. I'm Collier Landry. Let's get into it.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in...
When I was 12 years old, my testimony sent my father to prison for murdering my mother. I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, albeit with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Mover Nation, what is going on? I'll tell you what's going on. There is a atmospheric river monsoon going on outside these hallowed walls of production glory. I'll tell you. Yeah, it has. We have massive storms here in the Southern California area, and it is not fun. It is cold. It is wet. And I am so glad because I got up at 6 a.m. this morning just to get everything done before the rains hit. It's already been a very productive day, and it's only 3 o'clock. So here we are. So I am, of course, as always, late to the party on all these trials, all these things. And of course, it always starts out with a conversation with my adoptive mother, Susan. And she says, have you looked at this case? That's how it usually starts. Did you look at this case? Have you heard of this? And usually, like, have you heard of the children? What do you think the children feel? How do you think they are? Do you know that they're being raised by their 90-year-old grandmother? And there was 5 children. And I got to be honest with you, this whole thing is this all started back in May of 2019. And I can tell you that back in May of 2019, I must have been on a different planet because I don't remember this. I wasn't really into this type of thing. I wasn't even doing the show. But I'll tell you, as I look back at it, there are some very eerie parallels that are very similar to my father's case, my mother's situation. And I've been really digesting a lot of this. Big shout out to Court McNeil, who put together our wonderful research for this episode as well, as she always does. I am very grateful for her doing that. And we're going to get into it. But first, I want to tell you about today's video sponsor. If you are not aware, I have been working with this sponsor for about a month now. And I'll tell you, I had a bunch of stuff online that I could not get rid of. Robocalls, all kinds of annoying, just stuff coming my way. And ever since I started using today's sponsor, Aura, it has been a whole different world. And I encourage you to check them out. Here we go. So, hey, movers, I want to tell you guys about today's video sponsor, and that's Aura. Now, Aura is not just another identity protection service. It's really like your all-in-one solution for safeguarding your digital life. They do the heavy lifting by scouring the internet to find and delete your publicly available information. There's no more chasing down websites or managing different services. Aura has it all in one secure platform. And you know what else? They offer credit monitoring. They keep an eye out on your credit, ensuring your phone number isn't being handed out to those annoying robocallers. They start sending you alerts and emails notifying you when someone is poking around in your personal information or when your phone number is being searched. And the best part is you get to decide what stays public and what gets deleted. I've tried all the various identity protection and credit monitoring services, but it's Aura's streamlined platform that sets it apart. It's user-friendly, it's customizable, and most importantly, it's secure because all of your information is stored in an encrypted vault under your control. And here's the cool part for you, my awesome audience. Aura is offering a 2-week free trial. Just click the link in my description below or visit aura.com/Collier Landry and take back control of your digital life today with Aura. Now, looking back at this whole situation with Michelle Troconis, who, if you do not know, is on trial in Connecticut for her involvement in the missing case, in the case of Jennifer Farber Dulos. And I'm going to give you guys a quick little background onto all of this. So she is accused of second-degree hindering hindering prosecution, tampering with physical evidence, and conspiracy to commit murder. Now, the one thing that is very interesting about all of this, and something that I just have not been able to quite wrap my mind around, is the husband, Fotis Doulos, was the original suspect in all of this. And we're going to get into that, but he is no longer with us because he decided, as a good coward does, to well, to remove himself from this planet before he could actually face any real charges or prosecution. So we will refer to him as a cowardly individual that he is. And now the entire case falls upon the shoulders of his mistress, Michelle Troconis. And this, of course, this whole thing is a mess because even when you look at the jurors who were a part of this, they've been 4 jurors so far have been dismissed or alternates because some of them have been giving high fives to the prosecution, saying we love you so much, or we are looking for, or they are referring to it as the Gone Girl case. It's posting on social media. Of course, social media is something that obviously the court system and our justice system and our politicians still have not yet gotten a hold of or gotten a grip on. And to be honest with you, I don't know when that's going to be, but we've got to get a handle on it. If people are going to use social media, we just saw this play out in the Murdaugh trial and the retrial hearing, and just literally with jurors sitting in the juror room watching somebody on YouTube giving their testimony before they do theirs. I mean, this is a mess, and it doesn't seem like anybody can get a handle on it. So let's go back to the timeline of what happened in this case of Jennifer Doulos and Fotis Doulos, and here it is. So Jennifer Farber Doulos, who is a mother of 5, disappeared on May 24th, 2019 after dropping her children off at school. Now, still, her body has never been found, but it is believed that she was murdered by her estranged husband, Fotis Doulos. He was charged with her murder in January 2020 and, of course, took the easy way out by taking his own life shortly thereafter. 2 others have been charged, however, a gentleman named Kent Mawhinney, and of course, Michelle Troconis, who is currently on trial. Mawhinney is an attorney and friend of Doulos, and Troconis is his ex-girlfriend. Both have pleaded not guilty. Now, in 2014, Jennifer Farber and Fotis Doulos got married. They have 5 kids. And then in 2017, they filed for divorce. Now, everyone had known that this was a super contentious divorce. And Jennifer Farber, after discovering that he had a mistress, kind of feared for her life. And this is something that really resonates with me because my mother also had shared these same things with me before she was murdered. So on May the 30th, 2017, Jennifer had filed for an emergency order of full custody of the 5 children, which of course was denied. They were granted shared custody until the end of the divorce proceedings. Jennifer alleges that on May 30th, 2017, Fotis had threatened to kidnap their children if she did not agree to their terms in the divorce settlement, and that he had brought a gun that year. He also threatened to take them back to, I believe, Greece, even though he is from Turkey. He obviously has roots in Greece. She had thought that he was going to flee the country with the children. So, of course, as often happens in these nasty, nasty custody battles, these one parent threatens to take the kids from the other parent, and it becomes a whole mess, and it's just bad. There's no other way to frame it. So on June the 3rd, 2017, Jennifer said Fotis, quote, had become enraged and appeared out of control and blamed her for scheduling activities for the children on a Saturday morning. She said, I was scared and tried to leave the room. He followed me upstairs and into the bedroom, where he shut the door and blocked it, so I was trapped as he verbally attacked me and physically intimidated me. Jennifer said she was scared of him and that he had the attitude he must win at all costs, that when he believes that when he believes he had been wronged, he becomes dangerous and ruthless. This is very, very similar behavior to my father. And when I started reading and researching this, it all just really resonated with me, because this is the same intimidating, um, behavior that my father had. He was a win at all costs. You will not, these are very similar parallels when you're dealing with someone who is, and look, I am not a lawyer. I am not a psychologist. I'm not in law enforcement. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of shit. But I'll tell you, these are all very parallel to like my father's psychopathy, to his narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, and this abuse that a lot of women and families suffer at the hands of these individuals because they use the control, the manipulation tactics to get whatever they want. And it seems like Fotis was precisely that guy. So, of course, he had denied all those allegations in family court. So that takes us up to May the 24th, 2019, which was the day that Jennifer had disappeared. At 7:57 a.m., she sent a text to the babysitter, Lauren Alameda. It was her last text she ever sent. At 7:58, Jennifer drove her kids to school in her 2017 black Chevy Suburban. At 8:05 a.m., Jennifer was seen on multiple cameras returning to their home, and investigators believe that she was then killed between 8:05 and 10:25 a.m. At 10:25 a.m., her Suburban was seen leaving her home, but investigators believe that it was Fotis who was driving the SUV, which carried her body and items used to clean it up. At 10:29 a.m., her vehicle was seen southbound on Weed Street. At 10:38 a.m., her cell phone was tracked to 200 Latham Road in New Canaan, Connecticut, where her car was found abandoned later on that day. Her network was Verizon, and not too sure what that's important here, but her network was Verizon. So Verizon was able to track her. At 11:12 a.m., 3 minutes after her phone is disconnected, Fotis is seen driving along the Merritt Parkway away from that area. At 1:37 p.m., Fotis's phone is tracked him entering the property of 80 Mountain Spring Road in Farmington and remained at the property until 3:38 p.m., traveling to 4 Jefferson Crossing in Farmington. At 5:21 p.m., Fotis arrived at 80 Mountain Spring Road, and at 5:34 p.m., he travels back to 4 Jefferson Crossing. At 7:10, both phones of Fotis and Michelle Troconis were traced to an area of Albany Avenue in Hartford. And that is where they have shown during the trial of surveillance footage that was taken at local venues of Fotis unloading the car and dumping things into multiple different trash cans along Albany Avenue. And this is when Michelle Troconis was in the car, and she claims that she did not know what he was doing or what he was throwing into the bins. But we're going to get to that a little bit later. At 7:41, Fotis travels back to 4 Jefferson Crossing. On June the 1st, 2019, both Fotis and Michelle are arrested and charged with tampering with or fabricating physical evidence and hindering prosecution, and both pleaded not guilty. And on July the 3rd, 2019, Fotis released a rare public statement saying that he, quote, understood the public's perception of me as a monster, given the little they know about this case. On September 4th and 5th of 2019, Fotis again was arrested on September 4th and charged with a second count of tampering with evidence in the case of Jennifer's disappearance. Michelle turned herself in the next day and was also charged with another count of tampering with evidence. Both pleaded not guilty. Clothes and sponges were with Jennifer's blood were found in trash cans in Hartford, where arrest warrant state surveillance cameras captured a man, appearing to be Fotis, of disposing of garbage bags in multiple receptacles, according to the documents of the court. A woman in the passenger seat of the car fits the appearance of Michelle, according to the arrest warrants. Now, she has since stated that she was on a phone call in the car and, of course, did not know anything that was going on. On September the 13th, 2019, state police searched reservoirs in West Hartford for evidence. News 8 in Hartford confirmed officials used cadaver sniffing dogs, which are used to detect human remains, to search wide areas near the river. Now, there for like over 2 years, I believe, there was a massive manhunt looking for Jennifer Dulos or her body, because obviously the community, look, this is a very wealthy area, Canyon, Connecticut. This is not too far outside of New York City, but very, very wealthy. The Troconises, I'm sorry, the Douloses were very wealthy. Fotis Doulos was a real estate developer who had lots of money, and at least we think, and had massive personal wealth and massive personal connections in dealing with real estate and building. And that's brought up a lot of questions in the trial, like why was he dumping these things in these receptacles along Albany Avenue? When you go to a construction site, when you're building a house, they have massive dumpsters. Why not throw this trash that you're trying to get rid of in a dumpster on the construction site? I mean, I've worked on construction sites. I filmed four seasons of television about building homes and pools, and I would literally clean out the trash every week out of my car and dump it into the receptacles that we had on set because they were at the construction sites. So this to me is very, very suspect, and obviously to police, the same thing. On January the 7th, state police arrested Fotis at his Farmington home and charged him with capital murder, and kidnapping. He pleaded not guilty. The arrest warrant alleges that Fotis was lying in wait for Jennifer at her home, and a violent assault took place in the garage where bloodstains were found. Police claimed Fotis bound Jennifer with zip ties, put her inside her own car, and cleaned the garage. The medical examiner categorized the incident as, quote, homicide of violence that would, quote, likely include some combination of traumatic blunt force injuries such as bludgeoning, beating, and sharp force injuries such as stabbing and slashing, according to the arrest warrant. So again, this has a lot of similar parallels to my mother's own case. She suffered blunt force trauma to the head and was suffocated by my father, and that led to her death. And so when I read all this, I'm thinking like wow, this just really rings home to me. And one of the things that the nanny has since testified at Michelle Troconis's trial, and she has described that Jennifer Doulos, in the years leading up to before her disappearance and apparent murder, that she was very, very, very concerned with Fotis and feared for her life and feared also for her children's lives. And that was one of the reasons why she did not really want to file for divorce from him when they were living under the same roof, because she was worried about his violent reaction if they were living in the same household. Much like my father, much like my mother, same sort of thing. So it really, really resonates with me. So on that same day, January 7th, 2020, right before the wonderful pandemic, Michelle Troconis was also charged with conspiracy to commit murder. According to the arrest warrant, she lied about when she saw her boyfriend on the morning of his wife had disappeared, and she has pleaded not guilty. Kent Mawhinney was also charged, and he is a friend of Fotis and an attorney. He gave conflicting statements about his contact with Fotis and is accused of helping to cover up Jennifer's murder, according to the arrest warrant, and he has also pled not guilty. Now, I know a lot of you have been following this case for a really long time, and I'm sure in the comments, you guys are going to say, well, you got this wrong, you got this wrong. I'm literally basing this off of research, and I have not been watching this case 24/7 for 5 years. Full disclosure. This is something I just became interested in, and I wanted to share it with you guys because this trial is going to go on for the next month, and I'm going to talk about it a lot because I see so many different parallels. And I also see a lot that I find is interesting with this, because to me, it's very interesting to see how a trial like this can be conducted when there is no smoking gun, if you will. Like, there has the body of Jennifer Doulos has not been found, and now this woman is on trial, Michelle Troconis, for essentially the similar charges that Fotis Doulos would have been charged with. So there are a lot of questions in my mind regarding how we perceive this as an audience, as spectators, how the judicial system is looking at this in a lot of ways, because here's a man who took his own life to get out of facing this same situation that Michelle Troconis is in right now. And how does that all work? I think it really calls into question a lot of things about our judiciary. And there's another case that I had also become aware of last year, and it was very affected by it because it was at New Year's, and that was the That was the case of Anna Walsh, who was a mother of 3 who disappeared from her Cohasset, Massachusetts home, and her body has still never been found. And of course, her husband, Brian, has been charged, who has somehow, he's still in the middle of his whole court situation. But again, really tragic events surrounding these women, these mothers, and being in bad situations with husbands who seem to be deeply disturbed and deeply vengeful. And there aren't a lot of answers. So anyways, I digress on that. And yes, Court McNeil, blame News 8. Absolutely. If you do not like the research, please blame News 8. We did a lot of homework on this one within a very small amount of time for you guys. So, on January the 28th, 2020, Fotis fails to show up for an emergency bail hearing in which he could have been sent back to jail. Farmington police officers then perform a wellness check in his home and through a garage window. An officer saw that he was slumped over in the driver's seat of a vehicle. Emergency responders forced their way into the garage and performed CPR for about 30 minutes. He was taken to the hospital in an ambulance after a pulse was discovered. He was later flown to Jacobi Medical Center in the Bronx, where he undergoes treatment in a hyperbaric chamber for carbon monoxide poisoning. On January the 30th, Fotis was declared dead by suicide at 5:52 p.m. He allegedly handwrote a suicide note which maintained his innocence and that of everyone charged. Quote, "I refuse to spend even an hour in jail for something I had nothing to do with. I want it to be known that Michelle had nothing to do with Jennifer's disappearance, and neither did Kent." Now, I'm going to stop everyone for a second. What is very interesting is when Fotis Dulos was arrested, he gave several press conferences. And in these press conferences, he had talked about he was concerned about being reunited with his children, concerned about his children. He never once mentioned his wife or estranged wife or soon-to-be ex-wife, Jennifer Farber Dulos, ever in that. Like concerned about, hey, I really want to find out what happened to her. Hey, I really want justice for Jennifer, as everyone else in the community wanted. So I think that speaks to something. And my father did the same thing. My father, in the same way, had portrayed, never said, I'm interested in what's happened to your mother. What could happen? We need to look for her. We need to find her. Instead, his way of behaving was, let's be prevaricative with police. Let's not talk to the police. Nobody say anything. Nobody do anything. Collier, everything will be fine. She'll turn up someday, which is utterly fanciful. We see the same thing with the case of Alec Murdaugh, who does not seem, again, and I know there are a lot of people that are very conflicted about Alec Murdaugh's conviction for the murder of his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul. However, one of the key things in the defense that stuck out to me is that no one ever offered an alternate theory about what could have happened to his wife and son. Again, Fotis Dulos not offering or not even considering, like, hey, we need to go find out what happened to my wife. I'm really concerned because she is the mother of my children. Regardless, this is the thing that and I don't mean to get up on a soapbox here, but this is the thing that really affects me with these perpetrators. They never seem to stop and think that these kids have a mom in their life, and the mother is so important to them. And the fact that they are so wanton and so callous and just do not care, and they're so selfish and just want to be able to do whatever they want and remove those mother figures from the children's lives is, to me, like the ultimate insult. And then to pretend and write this note and to take his own life as if he's somehow magnanimous is absolutely beyond the pale. I refuse to spend even an hour more in jail for something I had nothing to do with. I want it to be known that Michelle had nothing to do with Jennifer's disappearance, and neither did Kent. Now, I hope, maybe the last part of that statement was true, but who knows? And to be honest, now the entire fall, what a selfish person. Let's just call it what it is. It's selfish. It's not taking accountability or responsibility for, or facing the music of why you're even in this situation in the first place. I'm going to close this. The rain is getting rather loud. I don't know if y'all can hear it or not, but it is really, really loud. And for those of you just joining, we are having a atmospheric river superstorm here in Southern California. We are supposed to get between 6 and 12 inches of rain, which is really, really unusual for us. And they call this the Pineapple Express. So Angel Schultz says, Fotis, it turns out, was broke. Most of their money came from Jennifer's parents. Okay, so yeah, so that's what I was going to get into, is they had this appearance of money. He was driving Porsches. He was making all these deals. However, a lot of this money, these finances had come from, again, Jennifer's parents, who, had all the money. Of course, it plays out like this. Of course, these scumbags do this. And welcome, everyone, by the way. Welcome all my Mover Nation fans. Thank you, and family. And of course, we have Tina Luffman here. So now the party is officially started. We're 26 minutes into it, but yeah, no, Jennifer Lewis Harris. Yes, there will be mudslides right around the corner from me. I'm up on a hill, so and I can see the ocean. Well, I can't see the ocean now, but yeah, but it will. Yeah, it's nasty. It's nasty. Illegally Read says, every case like this I see, I thank God that I did not have children with the abusive narcissist I was briefly married to. Amen. Yes. And Sweet and Sleuthy, thank you so much. I'm happy you found this channel too. Welcome, welcome. Back to the timeline. So the coward does the cowardly thing. Then we go to March the 2nd, 2020. Now, this is interesting because, this has been 5 years since this is going on. It is now February the 4th, 2024. This all started happening in 2019, May of 2019. So it's interesting to see. Obviously, we had a massive pandemic that shut all this down, and these trials that were all caught in limbo of the pandemic. I mean, just what a mess. Anyways, on March the 2nd, 2020, a judge granted a noble prosecution request by prosecutors to dismiss the charges against Fotis, ending that criminal case. There's an actual term for it, a Latin term. I can't remember what it's called, but basically, yes, they dismissed the charges against him because it's it's not an acquittal, but the acknowledgement of the reality that the prosecution of Fotis cannot continue because there's no Fotis to prosecute anymore. After the hearing, Fotis' attorney said he was framed, claiming someone murdered Jennifer and dumped a pile of bloody clothing on the porch, and that those were the items that he was seen dumping into the trash bin on a Hartford street. On May 20th, 2020, in her only statement, Michelle Troconis said that she is sad for the 5 children losing both parents within the last year. She said she made a mistake in trusting Fotis. She said there is a lot she wishes she could say, but she knows nothing about what may have happened to Jennifer. On August the 20th, state prosecutors filed 2 new counts of conspiracy to commit evidence tampering in connection with what authorities allege were efforts to cover up the killing of Jennifer. Michelle's lawyer has denied the allegations against her. In 2021, various searches were conducted, but nothing has been released in what may have been or been not found. March 29th, 2022, a judge denied a request to remove a GPS ankle monitor while Michelle is out on bail awaiting trial. He also asked the state to return electronics taken from the Troconis family, including her daughter's computer and her mother's phone. On April 26th, 2023, he changed his mind. On May the 15th, 2023, Ma Winnie was freed from house arrest, but he still has to wear an ankle bracelet. And on May the 24th, 2023, which marked the 4-year anniversary of Jennifer Farber-Dulos' disappearance, based on evidence found in the garage of her home, she was finally presumed dead. And now Jennifer's mother, who lives in Brooklyn, is raising the 5 children. That takes us to Michelle Troconis' trial. So again, Michelle Troconis, Do you guys think, is she a victim or is she in fact Lady Macbeth? And if you guys don't get that reference, read The Bard, read Macbeth. Lady Macbeth is the one they pin it on for Macbeth going haywire and killing people and killing the king. But that's a whole other story for a whole other day. So do we think that she is a victim of being manipulated by Fotis, or is she indeed really hands-on involved in this crime, covering up? Did she know that Fotis had murdered his wife, and did she willingly participate in this? And this is the question that is before the court right now and before the jury. So, again, what is she accused of? She is accused of second-degree hindering prosecution, tampering with physical evidence, and conspiracy to commit murder. Now, from what I found earlier this morning, if in Connecticut, the charge for conspiracy to commit murder and actual charge of murder is the same sentence, which is 60 years in prison. So it's interesting that there's no difference between someone who is accused of murder or conspiracy to commit murder in the state of Connecticut. I would imagine this probably dates back to like mafia laws, because Connecticut being in the proximity of New York City, and obviously a lot of mafia activity has come out of New York City over the decades. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Again, I have no idea. I'm just speculating. So, accused of being with Doulos when he drove around Hartford, disposed of evidence in bags, and was with him when he washed his truck to clear it of evidence. Video also allegedly shows her discarding of a package that contained an old license plates in a storm drain. And these license plates were admitted into evidence not too long ago, a couple weeks ago during her trial. And they had been altered with tape and cut out, like the T was made into an I. So they were involved in it. There's a lot of stuff that is very strange in this, because there's a lot of things that are very hard and difficult for Michelle Troconis' defense to explain away. Why would she be participating in that? And why would she be with Fotis when he was disposing of things that they believe were evidence of his wife's murder? And but on the flip side, you have Troconis, who was interviewed on 3 separate occasions by police leading up to her trial. And in every different interrogation, she gave different answers. And one of the things that her attorneys are arguing is she is from a Venezuelan family. So she is a Venezuelan, if you will, socialite. And her family has obviously come out in her defense. But a lot of people are saying, like, look, she didn't know what the police were saying to her, or she didn't, which to me, I would say, well, I would ask for an interpreter. And I've listened to some of these interrogations, and these police, something that, again, not a lawyer, not a psychologist, not law enforcement. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of shit. But I will tell you one thing. And my friend, who's a federal agent, one of my closest friends, tells me the same thing. The police can lie to you. There is no law. When they are interrogating you, or they are trying to find out information from you, and you are a potential suspect, they are not bound to tell you the truth at all. It doesn't matter. Like, they can say, hey, look, I just need you to help me out, buddy. Did you know about this? We just want to find out some more stuff. We'll let you go when we get to the station. They can say anything they want. They can say anything they want to you, just so you know. So the key thing is, don't talk to police. Get a lawyer. Get a lawyer. If you learn anything from me, it's that. Get a lawyer before you talk to the cops, because they can lie to you, and they can steer you into digging yourself into a hole that you might not be able to dig yourself out of. So it's the world, the justice system is littered with cautionary tales like this. Have a lawyer present. Ask for an interpreter. You're entitled to those things under our justice system, under the United States Constitution. Ask for them. Period. I digress. So, video allegedly also shows her discarding of the package, which contained old license plates, in a storm drain. And her defense has argued that there is no proof that is her on the video. So, January 11th, 2024, it was day 1 of her trial, which began with a walkthrough by police of Farber Doulos' home from the day that she was reported missing. Body cam footage showed officers finding her vehicle at a nearby park, and Troconis' attorney, John Schoenhorn, successfully argues that Jennifer should be referred to as, quote, an alleged victim and not a victim, stating it would be different if Doulos was on trial. Cat Loves Catskills, thank you so much for your 10-month membership. Wow. 10 months I've been doing these lives. This is crazy. 10-month membership. Thank you so much for that. I agree. I agree. I'm looking at somebody else's comment. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And Black Widower, welcome. Black Widower without the wrench. Day 2 of the trial. Focus on evidence collection. Schoenhorn argued about using luminol, which I don't know what luminol is. Police have said that, oh, yes, luminol is a chemical substance that is used to find and detect iron in blood. And he extensively grilled one of the police experts, which I thought was really interesting in the trial. And I thought to myself, God, if I was this officer, this is what I would have replied to. So he, her defense attorney was arguing that he was talking about this luminol, and he said, well, what do you use it for? And he said, well, it detects iron in the blood. And he said, well, yeah, but you're not a chemist, right? So you don't really understand how it works. Now, obviously, he's not a scientist and not a chemist. He is a law enforcement person. But again, he understands that it is there and it does discover iron, which is a key element of blood. And it is a key indicator that blood has been spilled somewhere. So it does detect these things. I would have responded to him saying, like, look, I don't know how a car works, but I know that it drives. Same type of thing. I mean, that's what I would have said, because like, for them to argue, well, if you don't really know the technical makeup of what luminol is, are you really qualified to use it? Yeah, I am. And I'm qualified of driving a car, even though I do not know how to build an internal combustion engine, right? My name is not Henry Ford, but I know I can drive a Ford. So that would have been my response to them. So I thought that, again, this is like this gamesmanship that all these lawyers play. And it's like, it's a spade is a spade. Like, it detects blood. That's what we use it for. That's why I have it. Like, that's why we use it in our process. Like, I don't know how we lift fingerprints off of either. You take it, you put a powder, you lift it up. There it is. It's a miracle, but it works. It's been proven. So I always find these things when I watch these trials and these defense attorneys kind of throwing out these little questions. Of course, they're trying to represent their client. They want to be able to be the best lawyer that they can be for their client. But I'll tell you, some of this stuff is just so ridiculous to me. And I got to tell Amazon Alexa to cut out the music, which is playing, and it's annoying the crap out of me. There we go. Brilliant. I, of course, keep that on for Marisol, but she has her bone, which is keeping her occupied right now. Anyways, on day 3 of the trial, Schoenhorn continued to argue against allowing testimony surrounding the evidence found using luminol, stating it reacts to iron and could show that bleach and rust are blood. I don't know, but bleach definitely people use to clean up blood. Witness testimony with Lauren Almeida, the children's current nanny, as well as at the time of the disappearance, said that Doulos was harsh and Jennifer, quote, did not like conflict. She said she admired Doulos until she discovered he was having an affair. So she does testify, this young lady does testify that she had looked up to Fotis Doulos when she hired him, or when he hired her, which was straight out of college. And she was an ambitious young woman, and she wanted greater things for herself than to be a nanny. And she appreciated his advice that he had lent her, and felt that he was really encouraging of her personal success, until she discovered he was a total scumbag. So there you have it. On day 4, Schoenhorn put in a motion challenging some DNA testing and software, claiming the technology has no peer-reviewed studies, just research done by the company itself. The judge denied the request, probably rightfully so. The nanny returned to the witness stand and said that after she learned of the affair with Troconis, the married couple's dynamic changed, and it was uncomfortable to be in the presence of both of them. She heard Doulos threaten to take the children to Greece and not come back, and Jennifer was afraid of him and hired an armed bodyguard to stand outside a hotel room during a trip to Miami that they went to. The judge dismissed an alternate juror over a comment made to an assistant state's attorney, which was apparently something like, "We love you guys," to the prosecution in the elevator. Of course, they were swiftly dismissed because of that. I mean, just craziness. I'm sure they're all planning on writing books too, just like Becky Hill. On day 5, Kristen Medell, a forensic science examiner, provided an overview of what a DNA profile is and how it is obtained. The lab took samples from Doulos, Jennifer, their children, and Michelle Troconis. She said the results showed that blood-like stains in the garage floor and the Range Rover parked there tested as, quote, a single female and is most likely Jennifer. The same results showed on the kitchen island, on a used paper towel, and a kitchen sink faucet. Now, one of the things, to backtrack to the nanny, Lauren Almeida, is that she spoke about how the night before Jennifer's disappearance, that there were 12 rolls of paper towels that they had stocked in the house. And the next day when she came to the house, when Jennifer was gone, that there was only 2 rolls of paper towels left. So she had thought the kids had gone through 10 rolls of paper towels, that maybe they had spilled something, but she thought it was really, really odd that 10 rolls of paper towels had just disappeared in a day. So that's one key thing that, is a piece of evidence like, okay, this doesn't quite make sense. And a lot of this, unfortunately, is obviously without Jennifer Farber Doulos' body. This is all circumstantial evidence, but this is what they're going with, obviously. Kristen Medell, who is the forensic science examiner, also noted that samples were 100 billion times more likely to be from Jennifer than an unknown whose DNA had not been sampled. So, with almost utter certainty, she can say that the DNA was that of Jennifer Farber Doulos. Samples from the faucet spout had a mix of 2 DNA profiles and one being male, which was likely Fotis Doulos. Schoenhorn questioned the results, stating items can test as false positive and stressing evidence was, quote, way too microscopic. On day 6, another juror was dismissed for discussing the case and referencing the novel and movie Gone Girl. One of the jurors gave the judge an unsigned note, which read aloud. Juror who made the comments was dismissed, which he read aloud, and the juror who made the comments was dismissed, and other jurors said they could remain impartial. Connecticut State Police Colonel Mark Davison testifies his analysis showed at least 2 bloodshed events inside the garage. He also walked the jury through the reconstruction process based on the blood patterns. Sergeant Kenneth Ventresca also took the stand and showed photos of Albany Avenue in Hartford, a location vital to the case, and is expected to play a significant role when he resumes testifying, which he did on day 7, Monday, day 7. Kenneth Ventresca testified about days following Jennifer's disappearance. He said every employee from the Doulos' company, the 4 Group, was placed on a whiteboard with info about where they lived and vehicles they drove. Joshua Quint, who has worked for police as a crime analyst, walked the jury through the process of searching footage for a black Ford Raptor authorities believed that Doulos was driving the night that Jennifer disappeared, which is also shown in the surveillance video. Footage shows a person who is, quote, allegedly Doulos getting out of a truck and dumping a bag of trash into various dumpsters along Albany Avenue. And not just like dumpsters. These are like literal like trash cans that are on the side of the street that people just walking past can put. They're not like dumpster bins. They're literal like plastic trash cans on the side of the sidewalk. Very, very, and people say it looks like him. It looks just like him. I've seen the video. It looks just like him. Like it's the guy. And driving a Ford Raptor, which is a really nice truck, by the way. Footage shows a person who is, quote, allegedly Doulos getting out of the truck and dumping a bag of trash into various dumpsters. Troconis is also allegedly seen leaning out of the truck. Another video shows Doulos and Troconis leaving a vehicle and placing license plates into a storm drain. The plates were for a canceled registration in Dulos's name. Now, also this night that they were disposing, or that Fotis Dulos was disposing of all this, Michelle Troconis claims that they were going to Starbucks, and that was the whole reason why she was with him. She was waiting to get her Starbucks, which, as I take another sip of my coffee, she must really like her Starbucks, but might be contemplating her Starbucks addiction right now at this moment. That's for sure. Connecticut, in day 8, Connecticut State Police Sergeant Kevin Dugan testified about checking garbage bins around Hartford and seizing trash as evidence. Items like 2 shirts, along with zip ties, a clear poncho, a bath towel, a broken razor blade, a bra, and gloves that all had blood-like substances on them. Other items seized were a bent broom or mop handle, sponges, a screwdriver, and keys. Carrie Luft, a friend of Jennifer's who is representing friends and family, wrote, quote, "Witnessing Jennifer's blood-soaked clothing, knowing that it was the shirt that she wore on the last day of her life, made us imagine again what she must have endured on May 24th, 2019. We hope that seeing this evidence in 3 dimensions can put an end to any suggestion that Jennifer is, quote, missing. She died a tragic death, and her loss is felt beyond what words can express. We are grateful to the prosecution and the investigators for their meticulous collection and presentation of evidence in this case. Above all, we trust in justice, and we hope this trial will provide answers to and accountability for what was done to Jennifer that day." And again, when we talk about all this stuff, and when I talk about this, we mustn't forget that the and I'm someone who's very passionate about this, is the consequences and the impacts of violent acts like this is so far reaching into communities, and to this whole thing is dragged on now for almost 5 years, and what this community has gone through, and what her friends have gone through, what the children have gone through. I mean, they have aged 5 years since all their mother went missing, and still not having those answers. Again, I've talked about this in other episodes, and when I share my story, it's something that I firmly talk about. Having heard my mother being murdered, and knowing that my father did that, as horrific as it is to sit here and say that and share that with you guys, even with a smile on my face, it is very true that I don't have any question in my mind that my father murdered my mother. No questions whatsoever. I often wondered why he did it. I posed that question to him in my film, A Murder in Mansfield. You can check it out. You can buy it right underneath here. It's in a link in my store. But I never once ever questioned that he did it. You know what I mean? The problem is for these children as they grow up, and the problem for these community members, for family members, for people that are involved and directly impacted by this, is because there has not been a body found, because there has not, obviously the bloodstained shirt, you're still not getting that that for lack of a better word, that closure. There is something to be said for actually seeing a body. One of the things that really affected me growing up is I was not allowed to go to my mother's funeral. So in a lot of ways, that was something that haunted me in a way that, even though I knew she was gone and I knew what happened to her, it didn't really put that bud, because I wasn't able to like sit there and say goodbye. So I had to go through my life and find other ways to do that. And my process was to create a film, and then now talk about it and share my perspective, my unique perspective on true crime, society, and popular culture and mental health, albeit with a slight sense of humor with you guys. That's how I cope with all this. This is sort of my way of like healing through all this. And you guys are witnessing through my process and through my podcast and through you guys are watching me. But that's something that I don't ever want that to be lost, because we get really involved in the minutia of the trial and of the suspects and of the people who are the accused. And we tend to forget that there are very, very real and dire circumstances and consequences that exist around this woman's loss of her life, her children, her family, people not really knowing what happened, not really knowing what happened to her, speculating how she died. It is a horrific thing to consistently kind of replay in your mind, for whatever it is. I mean, this is tragic to begin with, but even to have that sort of speculation constantly going through your mind, it's a lot. Even I had trouble sleeping after reading about this case all last night and watching a lot of content. I had trouble sleeping. Anyways, back to the timeline of the trial. Day 9, Matthew Riley, a retired Connecticut State Police Sergeant, continued to lay out the evidence collecting process. Schoenhorn, who is Troconis' attorney, argued that the evidence exhibits, quote, 99% aren't relative to this case, and he was, of course, overruled by the judge. Riley said officers seized handwritten notes during the search, which Doulos and Troconis allegedly wrote out that what they had done on the day of Jennifer's disappearance. The papers were found within a computer bag at the Doulos' home. And that timeline included getting frappuccinos at Starbucks in West Hartford, taking a phone call, and other events. The trip to Maine to Hartford was not included. On day 10, John Kimball, a retired detective who now works as an officer in Westport, Connecticut, discussed Troconis' initial interview with investigators. Troconis' attorney had argued in pretrial court appearances that the interrogation videos shouldn't be used during the trial because Troconis was tired and the interviews were conducted in English, which was her second language. However, a judge ruled that the prosecution can use those videos. Troconis has been listening to the trial via a Spanish interpreter. That's what the headphones are that are in her ears. Kimball told the court that she had never asked for an interpreter during her interrogation and that he wasn't concerned about her ability to understand and speak English. Kimball said Troconis arrived at the police department just after midnight on June the 2nd, 2019. He testified that Doulos was overly concerned about Michelle Troconis' behavior and conduct, and then he was staring at her while the police were speaking to her. Quote, his physical behavior was concerning towards the defendant, unquote. He said, adding that he had concerns about her safety. In her interview with police, Troconis is heard saying that she will help with the investigation. She detailed what she did that day. Kimball said that the timeline changed each of the 3 times that she was interviewed. The day of Jennifer's disappearance, Troconis and Doulos were in West Hartford for Troconis' daughter's French lessons. And Troconis said in interviews, which is why they were in the area where video allegedly showed Doulos disposing of evidence. The two went to Starbucks, and Troconis said that she wasn't paying attention when Doulos threw out trash bags. She said that they had thrown out other garbage bags before. Later in the video, Troconis is heard saying that she did not see the bags and didn't smell anything that could have been in them. Day 11. Troconis' second interview with police is played for the jury. Quote, I went as a companion, she is heard saying, quote, if I knew he was going to do something wrong, I would have never walked into that car, unquote. In the video, she states that she does not know where Jennifer is. Quote, Fotis lies to everyone, John Kimball says in the video, and quote, the reason why he lies to everyone is because he cares only about one person in this world, and that is himself. He doesn't care about his first wife, his second wife, or you. So he's actually pleading with her, please cooperate with us because he doesn't care about you. And neither does the police officer. He just wants to make a case. Officials say there were inconsistencies with Troconis' stories. She became visibly emotional, hanging her head and crying into her hands as Kimball continued to interrogate her, telling her that she was probably the most hated woman in America right now. And he does say that. It's kind of horrible, actually. Troconis' sister Claudia addressed the videos outside of the court, saying, we're finally seeing how my sister attempted to cooperate not once, not twice, but 3 times with the police, saying everything, trying to assist them as best she could, unquote. And so I know everyone wants answers, but my sister is not the right answer. She doesn't know anything, unquote. Day 12. The court lost yet another juror after they said they had to leave the country for a family emergency. An alternate was drawn, and leaving only 2 left. John Kimball took the stand again to answer questions from the defense about the interrogations. He said Troconis told him during the interviews that she didn't know what Doulos was doing that day and that she didn't know anything about Jennifer's disappearance. We believed, given the totality of the relationship, that she would know more than she was giving or providing us. Now, her attorney, Schoenhorn, said that Troconis that she would, quote, dig holes and trek through the woods to help find Jennifer. Law enforcement officers have highlighted that Troconis was inconsistent with her statements throughout her 3 interviews with police, and she omitted some information from a timeline that she wrote. The information included the trip that her and Doulos made to Hartford and their stop at Starbucks. Schoenhorn pointed to other details that were left, like that she picked up her daughter from school and that Doulos went out for a jog. He reasserted again outside the courtroom that she was not guilty. Day 13. Connecticut State Police Sergeant Michael Beaumont testified about evidence seized after Jennifer went missing. He has already testified about what was uncovered in the Albany Avenue area in Hartford, including 2 doctored license plates removed from the storm drain. Those license plates had canceled registration for Suburban that Doulos had once owned. He talked about encountering Powell Gimeni, who worked for Doulos, and how the employees seemed overly nervous. Police believe that Doulos took Gimeni's Jeep Cherokee to Jennifer's home when he went to kill her. That would make me nervous too. Day 14. Testimony addressed vehicles possibly connected to her disappearance. In one case, an older model Toyota Tacoma had 2 Porsche seats in the back. The seat cover on one had been removed, and the seats were not attached to the floorboard. One of the seats had tested positive for possibly being blood, according to court testimony. There were no viable hits from 2 other doorknobs, and that the fingerprints were not found on bloody items like the clear ponchos in the plastic bag. Another plastic bag had Fotis Doulos' fingerprint on it. Day 15. Sidney Strader, who supervised Doulos' visitation with his children, said that she had to see Doulos at all times and that he had to stay within earshot. She said that the children joked with him on May the 22nd, 2019, about his new haircut. She described the estranged couple's relationship that day as amicable, and the visit was 2 days before Jennifer went missing. Christine Roy, a retired forensic science expert, talked about examining the case's evidence while she worked at the Connecticut State Forensics Library. She testified about a bloody shirt that was found in a bag Doulos allegedly disposed of. Roy said that there was damage to the shirt, which investigators believe belonged to Jennifer Doulos. Next to the opening down the front, a bra also found in the trash tested positive for blood. And day 16, which was Friday, testimony once again focused on evidence collection and testing, specifically on items recovered from trash bins in Hartford. Retired forensic science examiner Anita Valonis took the stand. She worked at the state lab in Meriden in the forensic biology unit and processed evidence tied to the case. She explained she did so by documenting these items, searching for possible DNA, and testing samples. She testified that she did a screening test for blood on a number of items, including husky gloves, carpeting from the floor of a Toyota Tacoma, and a yellow-green sponge. Areas on those pieces of evidence tested positive for blood, but a mat from the truck and a section from one of the gloves came back negative. She also said she uncovered 5 human hairs on a towel, the interior door panel of a truck, and a clear plastic bag and a different sponge. Hairs and other samples of evidence were sent for DNA testing, but those results have not been published to the jury. Schoenhorn, Troconis' attorney, argued that some items might have been contaminated based on how the evidence was collected in Hartford. He has repeatedly objected to this type of testimony, saying these are presumptive tests without confirmatory results. So, Thank you so much, WTNH Channel 8, for this timeline of events. So now this all begs the question, a couple of things. Is Michelle Troconis a victim, or is she indeed Lady Macbeth? Did she possibly encourage Fotis Dulos to take take the life of his estranged wife, Jennifer Farber Dulos? I don't know, and I gotta be honest with you, uh, I'm really torn on this so far. I am looking forward to hearing more testimony. We're already 16 days into this trial, and they are talking about this is going to go till March. What a mess! What a mess! I mean, I can tell you one thing: that Fotis Dulos took the easy way out and apparently left everyone else to clean up his messes, both literally and figuratively. And that to me is probably the greatest tragedy in all of this, because if indeed this woman was just, the babe in the woods and didn't really know what was going on, didn't understand when she was being interrogated by police, and is somehow a victim of Fotis's manipulation and deception, oh God, she's facing a lot of time. And that's terrible. That's horrible. And she also has a child herself. She has a daughter, right? So, you have six children, six, wait, hold on, six children who are affected by this entire thing. On top of the family, on top of her family, which lives in Venezuela, who is, come to her, obviously her defense, her sister and family being outside the courtroom. This is a mess. This is just a mess. Again, I talk about true crime. I share with you guys my opinion and perspective on this because I feel like we need to really, really look at the consequences of violence. We need to really look at the actions of these people and see how far reaching all this can be, and how this um affects so much, affects communities, affects families, and how the selfish acts of some of these individuals, the butterfly effect, the repercussions of this just goes so far and wide. And yes, and as people are pointing out, she is on the phone. She says she was on the phone. She is out there, and and she was in the car. And again, I go back to my father's trial, and the day that my mother's body was found is the day that my father's business associate found concrete on his property, which tested positive to the concrete that was underneath my father's basement floor of his home, where he buried my mother underneath the basement of. So again, and that, obviously he was, questioned by police. He testified at trial. Um, that's a whole other conspiracy theory I can go into on another day when talking about my story. But again, people who commit these crimes do not care about involving everyone and every person in within their grasp, within their reach, and dragging them into their misery, and dragging them into their bullshit. And is that what has happened with Michelle Troconis or not? I don't know. And a jury will obviously decide the fate of Michelle Troconis. There's way more information. I'm not saying this is a reckless prosecution or whether it is a justified prosecution. I'm looking at this going, wow, there's a lot here. And this is a really, you know, in the court of public opinion, and in the way that we view these cases, we oftentimes want to try the person before there's even a trial. I mean, look at Brian Koberger with the Idaho 4 case. He is not even on trial yet, and people were looking everywhere. Even so much as an influencer on TikTok claiming that it was a professor at the University of Idaho that had something to do with those murders, which is wrong. It was absolutely wrong, and drag people into it. We're always looking for our bloodlust in these types of things can go so far. Is that where we're at here? I don't know. I'm not saying one way or another. I'm just saying it's a unique and it's an interesting perspective to apply to this case and many others, that maybe perhaps our bloodlust blinds us from actual justice. But I don't know. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you guys think, my audience. Please let me know in the comments below. Please give me your opinion. I'd love to hear it. Again, I want to say a big shout out. Thank you so much to all my channel members and channel subscribers. Black Widower, thank you so much. Member for 8 months. Cynthia Ann, thank you so much for joining for 10 months. And Cat Loves Cat Skills, thank you for being a 10-month member. Wow, I'm really, I'm very honored. Very honored that you guys are joining me on this journey. I'm here to give you this unique perspective because, there are many people out there that are lawyers or that are former law enforcement that are giving their perspective. And I feel a lot of times, you don't get that other side from a person who's actually lived through this in a completely different way. I'm very emotionally connected to what happened to my mother and what I went through as a child and what my father did. And I feel that I can add a unique perspective of compassion when looking at these cases. And so that's why I bring this to you guys, because this just shapes how I view the world. And I think it's important to have these discussions outside of a setting that is framed in legal framework, more of, hey, this is the reality of the situation for everyone involved. And how do we go forward? And how do we learn to be better human beings and better people? Anyways, Mover Nation, thank you so much. Again, thank you to all my channel members, my channel subscribers, my Patreon supporters. Without you guys contributing, it makes all this possible. It keeps the lights on. It keeps me dry on days like today when there's a flood happening outside my window. And I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate all your support. And even you guys just showing up here and checking out my content, sharing it with others. There's more content here on true crime and my own personal true crime story. You want to check it out. There are playlists for that, if for you guys to dive down in a rabbit hole. On that note, Mover Nation, we get through another one. And I'm going to stay dry here in the Southland, Los Angeles, California. I'm Collier Landry. I'll see you on the next one.
This podcast is made possible by support from listeners just like you. For exclusive content around this podcast, please consider supporting me via Patreon by going to collierlandry.com/support. Please subscribe via Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from, and please leave us a 5-star review. If you want to see video episodes of this podcast, please check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/collierlandry. You can find links to additional resources in the show notes of today's episode. This podcast is a production of Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Collier Landry.